Graduate students spend a lot of their time writing. So what exactly are we writing? I've put together a little list of some of the things you might be expected to write during your time in grad school. This list is fairly generalized, and you might have to write other things based on what you're studying and how your particular graduate program works as far as what's required for your degree. It's also skewed very much towards academia and research-based degree programs, because that's what I know. This list won't include the pieces of writing you'll need as part of your applications to graduate programs. If you're interested in what you need for applying to grad school, let me know in the comments, and maybe we can discuss it in another video. I've tried to put this list somewhat in chronological order, at least in terms of when you would be expected to be writing each of these things along the way to your degree. Many of these things will feed into your biggest piece of writing, your thesis or dissertation, depending on whether you're working on a master's degree or a PhD. The first piece of writing we're going to discuss is one you'll already be familiar with, the term paper. These will be your usual research papers you'll write for your classes. The biggest difference between these term papers and the ones you wrote as an undergrad is that they will most likely have to be longer, particularly in terms of page count. Professors are likely to encourage you to write your term papers about a topic that's related to the research you're already doing for your thesis or dissertation. Have I done that? No, absolutely not. I have done exactly the opposite of that. Whether or not you choose your term paper topics this way, you'll need to do a lot of background research on your thesis or dissertation topic for the next piece of writing on our list, the research proposal. In a research proposal, you set up your project and how you're going to do it. You'll want to describe why this project is worth doing. Does it seek to fill in a gap in the research within your field? Are you trying a new method of data collection and analysis? You'll write up all of your background information into a literature review. This will show you've done your research into what has already been done before, like the foundations of your project. Basically, what scholarly literature already exists about your topic, or what experiments have already been done that are relevant to your project or the questions you're trying to answer. In addition to a literature review that provides context for your project, you also need to describe your materials and methods in your research proposal. What data are you going to collect, and how are you going to collect and analyze it? What sort of permissions do you need as far as accessing subjects or materials? Your advisor will need to approve of your research proposal before you're good to go and carry out your project. If you're working with living humans as a source for your data, you'll need to go through an institutional review board, or IRB, and write the relevant documents and fill out forms for that. You'll also see these referred to as independent review boards or ethics review committees. If your research involves living human participants and meets the definition of human subjects research, your project needs to be approved by your institution's IRB before you can begin that project. Your institutional review board is meant to make sure your project meets the appropriate regulations and ethical standards, follows your institution's policies, and that your research participants are protected from any potential risks associated with the research. Your university's website should have pages that walk you through the IRB application process, as well as forms and templates that you can download. As far as writing goes, you might need to write informed consent forms or interview questions for your research, depending on your project. I don't have any personal experience with the IRB process because my research doesn't involve living humans, only humans that haven't been living for a couple hundred years. However, I do think it's worth discussing in its own video, so let me know if you would like to see that. Depending on your project, you might end up writing a grant proposal. This can be very similar to a research proposal in terms of format, but the goal is different. You'll send a grant proposal to an organization to apply for money to fund your project. Maybe you need to buy lab supplies or travel somewhere to collect data. There are also grants specifically to help pay for traveling to conferences where you can present your research. The contents of a grant proposal can vary, so check the requirements. You might need to write about the broader impacts of the research you intend to do. Why is it important outside your field? Is it relevant to other fields of study? You might also have to create a budget for your project. What do you need to pay for, and how much will it cost? The next pieces of writing on our list are specific to PhD students, at least as far as I'm aware. Comprehensive exams, or comps, are a set of 3 papers, and each should be about a different topic relevant to your dissertation. The idea is that you can potentially use them later as dissertation chapters. As an example, the topics for my comps are plague, tuberculosis, and bacterial meningitis, because those diseases are relevant to the samples I have for DNA testing. You'll send those papers to your advisor along with your research proposal. So, you've collected and analyzed your data, and you're ready to write a thesis or dissertation. What's the difference between these two pieces of writing? The first difference is when you write each of these. You write a thesis when you're working on a master's degree, and a dissertation if you're working on a PhD. A thesis is based on existing research, so it allows you to demonstrate your knowledge of what you're studying. You're demonstrating your mastery of a subject for your master's degree. A dissertation is based on original research, because you have to demonstrate that you can contribute new research to your field of study. It's going to be much longer than a master's thesis. The estimates for how long a master's thesis should be are all over the place. The University of Houston has put together a PDF of guidelines for writing a master's thesis for the MA degree, which will tell you a thesis is usually between 40 and 80 pages. While this was written specifically for their master's degree in political science and was written back in 2010, it does fit the range of page counts I've seen elsewhere. Depending on your project, your thesis could be up to 100 pages. Estimates for the page count of a PhD dissertation also vary wildly, and a dissertation could be anywhere between 100 and 500 pages. If you're interested in finding more specific examples from people who have completed either a thesis or a dissertation, there are discussions about this on Reddit and Grad Cafe forum. You might not have to write either of these documents in order to complete your degree. Some graduate programs offer a non-thesis option or portfolio option, in which perhaps you write a series of research articles and submit them to academic journals. I didn't write a traditional thesis for my master's degree. I've only seen these options in anthropology grad programs. Those are the only ones I've ever applied to. So if you've done this for your degree, please tell me about it in the comments. When you're ready, you'll send this document to your committee. You'll likely need to make some revisions based on their feedback. You'll also need to defend your thesis or dissertation, which is a formal presentation based on your project. This last one, the abstract, is at the end because I didn't really know where else to put it. This is the shortest piece of writing on our list, and you'll probably only write an abstract in certain circumstances. An abstract is a short summary of a research paper or a talk or poster presented at a conference. You'll read a ton of these while you're doing research. An abstract should include your research question, materials and methods, results, and conclusions. For archaeology or a lot of biological anthropology and ancient DNA papers, you're also going to want to include the sites and time periods you studied. It does need to be brief, and it's usually only a single paragraph. I've seen the word limit for abstracts be about 200 or 300 words. You'll write an abstract if you're writing an article submitted to a journal or if you're presenting work at a conference. You'll submit your abstract when you're registering for that conference, whether you're presenting a talk or poster. I hope you found that interesting or helpful, especially if you're thinking about going to graduate school. Like I said at the beginning, I tried to keep this list fairly generalized. You might not have to write every document on this list, or write other documents I didn't include. As a specific example, my colleagues who are studying forensic anthropology write case reports. If you're currently in grad school, let me know what piece of writing you've been working on lately. I'm going to go work on my research proposal and my comps, because they're still not done yet. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.